This is Mommying While Muslim, recorded live and unedited. Watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
That was so cute.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum,
That cartoon
everyone.
was the
This is Uzma Jafri with
cutest.
Momming While Muslim.
I love
Like
the
you said, that police officer just
random
really does
police
it.
officer. I know
Hey,
she
Muslim
makes the
surveillance is real.
cartoon. She's like, I'm gonna watch from the sidelines. Assalamualaikum.
Make
This is
sure they're
Zeba
in line
Hassan.
here. What? Hey, Zeba, how's it been going this week?
You know what? Like, I have to say, like, I am so, counter to what people think. I'm actually an introvert, as people know, which is why I always flake out for mom's night outs and all that. Everybody knows that. So I've been really enjoying, like, the quiet connection that we've been together. I'm going to pull my microphone down a little bit so you don't hear my heavy breathing, but I'm really enjoying just kind of like being with the kids during this Ramadan. And I feel like this is the first time, I've complained in years past, I'm not going to lie, that I'm hangry and angry and tired. But this Ramadan, I think because there's a lot more downtime during the day, I definitely feel more or better rested. And that's definitely for me, sleep is a huge thing. As you know, I'm always trying to give you lectures about sleep. But what about you?
I know.
How's your week been going? How many hardware stores did you hit this week? That's what I want to know.
I only went to the hardware store 3 times this week, so that's really good. I mean,
Okay.
since
That's a record.
Thursday? Since last Thursday, 3 times, so that's really good.
Okay.
Sometimes I hit it twice in
that's a
one
plus.
day or multiple times in one day. So, yeah. But
Oh my
hopefully this
God.
is the week when everything's over, inshallah, make dua, But
I'm
my
praying for
mom
you.
week this week, thanks. I had to take a page out of your book and have the talk with my 9-year-old daughter. That was something.
Oh, did that happen? So how did that
That
go?
totally
And by
happened.
talk, what do you mean? And what do you mean by that? The talk.
Okay.
The birds and the bees
The
talk.
talk.
The period talk.
Basically.
What are we talking about here? Okay.
Well, it
All of
was
the
kind of a
above
mix of
talk.
everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So it started with
So
my introduction
so tell me what.
of the depilatory arts.
Okay.
So from that, as we're talking about hair removal, she started asking more questions, and the questions just kind of built on top of each other. And I didn't want to lie, so I kept answering them. So the final result of the night is my daughter is absolutely devastated. She hates men.
Oh,
She hates being a woman. And her daily dua in Ramadan, pre-Maghrib time, is going to be, Ya Allah, don't ever let me hit puberty.
I don't want to do this. I told you we did
So
the
I think
same
I
thing,
did it
but
all
I have to tell
wrong.
my No. Like how you should explain it, honestly, because even my Zara has the same. She still sometimes goes through that. Like, God, it's just really tough. I'm like, listen, you get the blessing of inshallah one day being a mother, and for me personally, that kind of like. I would rather be the mom than the dad. No offense to our dads out there. So I just tell her that for me is such a blessing, and it doesn't matter how much pain, effort it takes for me to get there. So that's just my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. But I'm glad you had the talk now.
Girl, I tried
It's
that.
better to get it done
Yeah,
and over
I
with.
tried your thing where you
Yeah,
were like,
just be
"Oh, but this is the
honest.
way that we have babies." And she's like, "I'm good not having babies now. I don't want to be a mom anymore. I'm not even getting married." So
Exactly. I'm done. I'm done.
there we go.
Don't do that. No, I have to say, yeah, maybe 9 is a little bit too young, but she's very mature, and inshallah, it should be totally fine. And I'm so glad that you had this conversation. And the fact that she felt open to ask you these questions, it's always uncomfortable, but I'm glad you got it done, Mama.
Thank you very much. It was hard, but I did it.
So, like, what's new for you this week? Like, I know you were talking about perhaps like some Quran-based learning for adults and kids. Like, what's going on with that?
So my daughter is in a Quran class that meets once a week, and that's for kids, and they're studying one surah and doing kind of a little bit of exegesis. And what I really like is they're doing some art. So it's kind of like Quran journaling for kids. So they're doing that, and then I
Oh,
start my adult Quran lessons working on my pronunciation because no matter how good you think you are, you can always
yeah.
improve, right? So yeah, that's that.
Hmm.
And then the soapbox for
Well,
today
I'm
is just
glad.
to hashtag, yeah, just to make use of all the time we have in Ramadan, right?
Hashtag.
So our soapbox for today
Hashtag.
is going to be hashtag light it blue. There's your gang signs for fallen healthcare
Yes.
workers every single Thursday. If y'all can change your profile pics to a light blue, and or you can look up the light it blue frame for your profile picture, and that way we can honor our healthcare workers and their families, those who have been on the front lines and have passed as a result of their work.
That's just amazing, and definitely will be lighting blue. I like that you're wearing blue today, so I wish I got the memo and I could have done that. But I really appreciate like you, my brother, my sister-in-law, mashallah, all of our families that's in the medical field that go to work every day, and put their lives online. Like I don't know what we'd be doing right now without them. So we will be definitely lighting it blue on Thursday. But considering people on the front line, we are going to talk about this month all of our power month. We're going from the power people on the front lines to the power moms for the month. As we know, May is Mother's Day. Daddies and kiddos, it's on Sunday, so in case you're forgetting the day of the week, I had to quickly send my mom's and my mother-in-law stuff today. I was like, oh my God, it's this Sunday. So in case you've forgotten, go make your cards and your paper flowers and get that done for your mamas today. But I actually wanted to start off and kick off this month this week with Power Moms. And we start with a young hijabi woman who was a reporter in Austin. She's an amazing force over there and kind of breaking a lot of the stereotypes. And Uzma brought her up to me and I was like, oh, we should have her on. And she was like, she's awesome, but why not have her mom on? Like, how cool would that perspective and that point of view be? Because how did she raise such a resilient young lady in the media world in Austin, Texas, nonetheless? And how does she get that done? So we're excited today to have her mama on. Durdana Rahman joins us today to kind of tell us how to raise kids in the face of diversity and really go and live their dreams to the best of their abilities. So thank you so much, Durdana, and Ramadan Mubarak.
Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak to you guys too. Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. I'm humbled to be here. Thank you for thinking of me.
Oh, yeah. I know you like to downplay what a significant role you have. And, Dordana is super awesome about always saying, but my daughter does the work, but my daughter does the work. And alhamdulillah, she's an amazing person, an amazing young woman. But that comes from somewhere. That seed was planted somewhere,
Yeah.
and I'm going to guess it was yours. So that's why you're here today, Power Mom.
You
Thank you
know,
for joining us.
oh, Jazakallah khair. Thank you. But again, I think honestly, I boil it down to du'as, 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 and we can't say
Yes.
enough about that, of course. But it does take a village, and I can't take all the credit for it. And it starts out also with, people around her. She has a very good uh, surrounding of friends, aunts, uncles, my parents, her grandparents, and the community too. You have to be very careful what kind of community that you decide to raise your kids in. But bottom line is how the environment at home. And my husband and I are on the same page a lot when it comes to certain things. How we get there is sometimes, we butt heads on that. But in the end, the kids get a full perspective, right? So in the end, they get a full perspective of what's out there, and then they can decide as long as it's in the path of halal, and the rest is, you know, mm, you have to give them a lot of freedom. You do have to give them a lot of freedom to choose.
That's all really good advice. But I remember when I first asked you this question, like, how do you make an awesome kid? And you were like, oh, it's dua. And, that's like the pin and the balloon that deflates you. It's like, no, but I'm looking for the manual. Where's the instruction manual?
Absolutely. No, I understand. And,
To write the book.
I actually, yeah. So I actually asked my kids because I have 4 boys. Tahira is my only daughter, and then I have 4 boys after that. Mashallah. And I had
Mashallah.
asked them all. I said, somebody wants to ask me, what I did as a mom that you love me so much, and what is I did that there are times when you want to pull your hair out and drive out and come back an hour later. But
Yeah.
they said, yeah, that's exactly how it is. And I asked Tahira too, and I said, do you think that it's something that you could, maybe give me 1 or 2 points? And I think the bottom line is they said, Mom, you always have our back. You don't go and make the same mistake twice. Even if you think that you were doing something right, and we tell you, Mom, this embarrassed us. Mom, uh, when you said this to such and such a person about us, how when, for example, you hear a lot of moms saying, "Oh my God, the kids are home now. How am I going to handle the kids? I'm going to pull my hair out." All that kind of stuff. I don't think we realize when the kids hear it how they feel. I mean, what if your spouse or your children
Exactly.
said, "Oh my God, my mom is home. How am I going to deal with that?" That's hurtful, and we're adults and we can handle it. So how do you expect your
Yes.
kids to handle that? So I've always been very careful with my children. And because I was actually with them 24/7 for most of it, Tahira and her the ones after the older 2 boys right after Tahira, because I was a teacher, I would go to school with them. I would teach in the same building. I would come back home. So
Mhm.
I was with them a lot. There was a lot of times when I had that. I have to be very careful. What are they saying, about me, or that I'm doing wrong? Because kids talk. So I have to be very careful that
Mhm.
what I'm doing is something that they can be proud of. I think that's very important
No,
because
that's
that
That's really
exactly
good
then
right.
advice.
gets into their self-esteem. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because
It
honestly,
reflects
what
on their
you
self-esteem.
say or even exactly. And we don't realize, like, we think we might be joking or whatever the case may be, but they don't think that way. It doesn't come across that way to them. So being mindful and conscientious of what you say when they're around is very, very important. So thank you so much for telling us this. But what I wanted to know, since it seems like Uzma's a little bit more familiar with you, but like, what is your family background? Like, how did you get to where you are today? Like, where is Dordana from, and how does she get here, and how can we learn from you?
So I I was born in India, but came at a very young age when I was only 5. However, India is like a still, as those of us who grew up here, we know that our mother country's become a foreign land to visit, and our home is
Hmm.
America. So I am the product of public school, but my Islamic school, Sunday school, had a big impact on me. I was very small, and when you're young, there's a lot of things that your parents do that you feel that's so unfair, but there's a lot I do take from my parents as well. Like my dad, every single day would wake up us 6 kids at Fajr time, and he would all rotate us to make his lunch. A couple of us would make his lunch and breakfast, while the rest of us would read Quran with him, 1 page a day, every day, with meaning, without
Wow.
fail, every day at Fajr, no matter what. Yes. So if you were one of those that could not pray or read the Quran, then you were making lunch for him. And we talked about that in our 20s. Our sisters like, God, Abba was so abusive. Do you remember when but now we look back
That's
Slave
so
and we
funny.
labor.
say, my gosh, I wish I would have slave labor. But now I look back and I thought that really molded us. We were our siblings are the opposite of my kids. There were 5 sisters, 1 boy, whereas my kids are, boys
Wow.
and then 1 girl. But we did the lawn work. We did, the everything that boys should have done, shoveling and all of that. And um, now I realize that that's what made us the way we are, that we can handle everything here. We can be a super mom. And, on that term, I'm not sure I like that. I feel like more of we are being a mom, super or not. And it's up to
Yes.
your level of comfort. It's your level of comfort.
Right, right.
The main thing is it's okay if and after that, by the way, then I got married at 19, went to college while I had my kids, and you know, um, you know, I was actually going to go to law school, but because I had three kids already by the age of 24, uh, my mom said, why don't you do teaching? You can go with the kids and come back and then do your law school a little bit at a time. Well, law school never happened, but we did end up, I loved my teaching, and then I ended up being a principal of a school. And alhamdulillah, the main thing is that I was with my kids for the majority of the time. Um, and Tahira actually went to school with me when I was 19. When I went back to school at about 23, and I went into education, Tahira was very, I think she was 5 at that time, and I used to just take her with me to college. I had no clue you couldn't. So she would sit next to me, and I'd
So
have a
cool.
coloring book, and all the other students would be, yeah, it was, and the professors never said anything. And this was way back in the 90s. So, you know, um,
Uh-huh.
and she would sit there with her coloring book, and her brother Junaid would sit there with the coloring book, and all the other, student teachers would be, oh, they're so cute. And I think that really set her, uh, you know, their kids for their organization skills, and having that sense of what things are important. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that's really great training for them early. Because, I mean, when we went to school, and it wasn't that long after the 90s when we were in college, and I remember moms bringing their kids in, and I would always be like, oh my God, you're amazing bringing your baby to class. Like, thank you for setting that example and setting the bar. So when we finally entered our professional lives, we didn't have that hiccup either. We felt comfortable taking our kids as a result of these pioneers like yourself who brought the kids in and showed it, this is normal. This is like an appendage. I have given birth to this person that I now have to carry with me everywhere. And I think that normalizing that, children in the workplace, is kudos to you for doing that. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about
And
your professional work as an educator?
So I actually have such a, a hodgepodge of stuff that I don't. Um, I started out in Islamic schools, which was very important for me because my kids were going already to the preschools, and I decided that since they're there, that might be the best career for me. That's when I started teaching. After that, I moved to public school, and my kids continued Islamic schools. And around when Tahira was in her ninth grade, we moved to Doha, Qatar for a few years. And she actually graduated
wow.
from an American school, yes, over there. A very sheltered life, but actually it was a fantastic life. But the thing is that it was really not reality. And eventually we came back because three of my kids were starting college here. So I figured more kids are here. So we came back. But my school over there was, that I worked at, was a diplomat school, and very nice. Worked for the special needs department over there, learning disabilities. Then I came back here, and then I was the principal of an Islamic school again. And then after Tahira became the first hijabi news reporter in America for mainstream media, I became her manager, her momager, if you will. So I quit, and I've been home ever since. So,
I
That
alhamdulillah.
love
is
that.
that is so
But I
awesome.
do have to put a shout
And
out
the one thing
to.
I wanted to no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to put a shout out to Islamic schools because I feel like really they also help to, build the base for what, the kids believe in, and what uh, their internal um, molding, if you will.
That's awesome. Like, I
That
did want to touch
barometer.
upon
Yeah.
what you said about taking your kids to school. My mom had to do a similar thing, had a very similar story to yours, and I remember when she would talk about the stories about how she would keep my brother next to her and bring snacks and this, and it really is for me such an amazing opportunity to see your mom in a different way, right? Like she's trying to do what she needs to do to better herself. So I feel like one, that's a great role modeling experience that your kids actually literally sat next to you and watched you do that. So that I just wanted to say what an amazing thing for you to take your kids, and the fact that they learned from you. That's so awesome. And quite frankly, it kind of lets other people know that you can get it done. Like if there's ever the desire, when there's a will, I feel like there's a way. So definitely appreciate that. But the one thing, we actually have a question on Facebook that somebody wanted to ask you, like, how involved were you with the friendships that your children had? Because, friends after a certain age, and you have older children as well, become a lot more influential sometimes than your parenting.
That's a great question. And honestly, each child was different. And it's so important to note that, all my children, same parents, same house, same water, same air, same background, but yet they're all so different. That's the first thing you have to recognize. And that is my greatest challenge. And I think because I grew up with all sisters, and it was easier for me to recognize that with Tahira than it was with my boys. My boys were a huge challenge for me. And so when I would tell Tahira certain things, and because they were, and because Tahira and I are, I want to say I was very young when I had her. I was still a teen. I was still 19. But so we're more like sisters. But with my boys, even though I was 20 when I had my son, it's still very different because he is, after all, a boy. We're still very close. My boys and I are very, very close. And if there's a takeaway from this whole thing, I think that's what I want everyone to know, is that my kids and I are very, very close. We talk about everything. There's no holds barred. And that's one of the things that, my kids were able to tell me about their friends. You cannot judge them. When I start giving advice, when they start saying, they clam up. So I have to listen to everything and then come around maybe a day or two later and say something. At that moment, don't give advice. And I learned that from
Yes.
one of my middle sons. Just when they get upset, well, and there are a lot of times when I will say to my kids, well, maybe, I'm thinking in my head, maybe that friend wasn't good for you, or maybe you shouldn't have said that, or maybe, there's so many things I want to say, but I don't, because they're not going to listen. They're just going to get
Yes.
upset because they're thinking, I'm not listening, I'm making judgment calls. And that starts at a very young age. It really does. It starts at a very young age for you to listen, you know. So when it
And
comes
what
to the
happens
friends
too, they
part,
clam up and
I
they stop asking you, and they stop talking to you, right?
they
If they do
absolutely
feel like you're going to be judgmental, they start pulling away. So you're like, you just literally have to sit on your hands and keep your mouth shut. Like, I feel like that's amazing advice.
and when my and all this advice I'm giving is really common sense, and I think a lot of moms know it, but sometimes at the heat of the moment they can't remember it. You just and I'll see that even as a principal when I'm and I see parents drop their kids off, or the child. I mean, the kids might be in preschool 3, 4, they're having a bad day, and the mom is like, turn to us and say, I can't deal with this kid. You take him. And you just don't realize that you've just told your child, I don't want you. I'm giving you to somebody else.
Right.
That's just not fair, to the child. What do you, but I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but as far as kids go,
You're totally not,
I
because
try
you're
the best that
absolutely
I can.
validating every single experience I've had.
Alhamdulillah. But one of the things, like, on we don't have a picture perfect family. I do have challenges with the kids, but and they all do come from outside factors, and that's the thing. Like the person who had the question asked, what about friends? I think it's very important to know who the friends are, and just because they're Muslim doesn't mean they're good people. Um,
100%.
When we went to Doha, we had a wonderful group of friends. We were in a country where drugs and alcohol were forbidden, so I didn't have to think about that. Alhamdulillah. Then I came here, and I pushed my kids to have, good friends, Muslim friends from the masjid, and to find out that just because they're going to the masjid does not mean that they don't have their vices as well. So it is very important. And
Mhm.
there are very good Muslim people who are involved in the masjid. And so I, I will come back and say, I heard such and such person was doing this, but can you be careful? They'll be defensive, but it's in their mind. And they know, that my mom knows maybe this person is like that. So I have to be careful. I haven't seen that side maybe, but if I do in the future. And I'm very lucky that my kids are very close to their cousins as well. So they have that as well. And plus, I have a big family, so they're close to their siblings as well. But yes, you do have to be involved with your at a young age and hope that when they're older, they'll know those values as they're getting older. Never say anything bad about the kids or their kids' parents to them, because when they're young, kids don't know what to say and not to say. When they get angry, they will say to their friend, "Well, my mom
Right.
said
Yeah.
that your mom," and you're like, "Oh my God." And then that
Yes,
mom will call
they
you, "Did you
will.
say this about me and my family?" And not
Like
only that, but you're
one of our
teaching them
tenets, right?
No.
labor.
Just
You're
don't talk about people. Just don't talk about people, and you
Yeah,
just
just
don't have
don't.
to worry about it, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So, and it's
That's
and you're
all such
also
excellent,
exactly, you're
excellent
teaching them to
advice.
talk about other people. Thank you. Just
Exactly.
and you're teaching them to talk about other people, which is forbidden, say good.
Absolutely.
I always tell my
Well, I
kids
want to
silence is an
focus a little
option.
bit more on silence is golden. Yeah. So we want to focus on a little bit about how you raised the first Muslim hijabi news reporter. And so I've heard her story told by herself, and it was really moving because, she talks about how many times she got kicked in the teeth, basically, and you just kind of brushed her off and picked her back up and we're like, go back, just wiped her face and we're like, all right, get back into that ring and keep going. And, to find out that you're a mom of boys who happens to have one daughter, I just, I only have one daughter. Like Zeba and I both share that. We're boy moms who happen to have one princess in the house too. And that story was really important to us, and how you taught Tahira to keep going, to get up with her mouth guard on and get back into the fight. We want to know, like, how you did that and how did it feel? Because as a mom, I wanted to cry for you and for your child when I
Mhm.
heard that story.
Mm. Oh, and you have to look at the focus of what your child wants and long term. You really do. When Tara talks about that phone call in her video of how she was crying and she called me, my husband was next to me. And my husband had tears in his eyes, and he said, "Just tell her to come home. She can come home and we'll support her and she'll get married."
Of
And
course, the
Exactly, right.
fallback.
instead, yeah. And of course, instead I said to her, Vita, because we've been through all that, right? We've been to it where we've
Right.
wanted that position, we've wanted that job and or something, and it didn't work out. And what did we do? We did pick ourselves up. And if we give the opposite advice to our children, you're telling them, that's okay, give up. You have a fallback, you have us. That's or whatever.
Hmm.
You just say, I actually had told her two things. I had told her that, Bita, you know what you want, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it to you if you say Alhamdulillah for what did happen. And then just pick yourself up, because you will always regret not doing what you want to do. And you'll always say, what if? And, and that's from the shaitan. So go ahead. And she's always been, hanging on words that I've said. And I think it's because I was someone that she's seen me grow with her. But even when she was younger, she was in a science fair, and it was a time for a science fair. She was fifth grade, and she hadn't really practiced. So during her lunch break, I called her into my classroom, which was also my lunch break, and I said, "Okay, tell me what you're going to say." And she had no clue what she was going to say. She was like, and I said, "No, you're going to stand there and you're going to practice until you get it right, because you're always going to, if it's going to happen now, it's going to happen later." So she practiced and she actually won the science fair, and it was like a couple hours later. And then I think that
Alhamdulillah.
made her realize you can do it. You can do it. Alhamdulillah. And by the way, the science fair was about how water does not go through nail polish. And she was
Oh
so
my
interested,
gosh.
and she had painted nail polish on a piece of paper, and then she'd put it in water, and then she'd put another piece of paper, and then how water doesn't go through nail polish, and how you have to make sure you make wudu beforehand or whatever. But
Oh my
this is the
gosh.
way she has always been, just kind of very focused on, this is what I want. So I was really surprised that she had even had the thought of giving up. But it was really just, I think, frustrating when you are in a town where you're the only Muslim at that point, and you don't know if you can go on. Everybody has that a little bit. And then, then of course I gave her the dua for, a calamity to give on, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And so, I forwarded that to her, and she read that. And then I said, you have to sometimes swallow, your immediate desire to want that right away. I want that right away. Everything, I said, you're young. This is just your first, you know, this is just your first experience. But I think what was really upsetting for her was the way that it happened. And I think that, yeah, you just have to talk them through it and make them realize there's a silver lining to everything.
Yeah. Even when
And that's
there's a
that's actually
touch of
really
that
great because
Islamophobic, like racist undercurrent.
Um, I don't know if there was a racist or that's probably something that she can talk about more than anything. Um, but I think because throughout her career she did have that Islamophobic and racist, that this was just kind of leading up to it. She really felt that all of that coming together, I think just kind of pent up at that moment for her. And in the end, it was that same station though that gave her the break that she needed. Alhamdulillah. So she had to work her way
Mhm.
in other
Alhamdulillah.
ways. She had to prove to them that I'm a professional. Alhamdulillah, no matter what I wear and what my beliefs are, what my religion is.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
so the one thing I did wanna I ask you, the fact that she's in a profession that is not very common, right, for our culture. I can't even imagine if I went to my dad and was like, I'm going to be a journalist. He'd be like, yeah, no, if you're not a doctor, what is a doctor, teacher for, a female, then that's just not happening. So one, you mentioned earlier that you came here at a young age. Do you think that that had something to do with your willingness to be open with a different type of career choice? That's my first question. And my second question is, I loved what you said about parenting different kids differently. Like, it's not a bad thing to adjust your parenting style that will go and you change your approach so that the kid can understand where you're coming from. So can you tell us a little bit about both?
So the first thing that I definitely, when Tahira wanted to be a journalist, yes, she got a lot of resistance from the community. And a funny thing is that, there was a member of our family who had said, one of my relatives, extended relatives, who'd said, Beta, if you do medicine, I will pay for all of it. What is this journalism thing? You know? So
Yeah,
she
and like,
got
what are
very,
you talking about?
yeah, and I'm very blessed that my husband, even though my husband grew up in India, in Hyderabad, and he came here in his 20s. And his family is very much the everybody needs to be a doctor type thing. But my husband was always, even with my boys, do what you are. This is America. You can have $2 in your pocket and you can go and start anything. You don't need to have a college degree if college is not for you, but you need to be successful at whatever
Wow.
you are, and you need to follow the thread of Islam. That's all he said. I mean, if my husband had his way, all of my kids would be alims and sheikhs and imams, alhamdulillah.
Awesome.
But
Alhamdulillah.
but we and one of the so he did make sure they are to have that foundation, and you can only do so much. So when Tahira said she wanted to be a journalist, sure, but make sure that whatever you're doing, you have the knowledge, and that you have, so that when people approach you, when you go out there, that you are able to speak the truth, that your information is not incorrect. And that's one of the
Right.
things that we've always said to our kids. Now, whether or not all of them are going to follow it after a certain age. So when I was younger, I was very blessed to have read a book when my kids were very young. And I think it had in there I want to say it was a hadith, I'm not sure, but it said, when your kids, love them unconditionally until the age of 7. Then from 7 to 14, discipline them and teach them. Then from 15 onward, be their friend. You're their friend.
Mhm.
And I remember reading that, and I remember thinking, at that time, how can 14 you stop disciplining? How can at 14 you give them that much at your be the friend? But it's just so true, especially for boys. I feel, girls of course, but even especially for boys, because at that age, when they start hitting puberty, they want to start making decisions, and if you make decisions for them, it's very frustrating for them. So that's one of the things that I've always kept in mind, that when they start to resist things that I say, or they'd say, "Oh, you're so bossy." I'm like, I have to step back and let them make their own decisions, let them make their own mistakes. You can only tell them so much. And another thing is,
Mhm.
I never hit my kids. I never hit my kids. I feel that is such a
Mhm.
humiliating thing to do to anybody, no matter how undisciplined they are. Actually, I had spanked one child once, and he remembers it to this day, and he's in his 20s. He's like, "Remember when you spanked me? I had to get the spanking." And I will tell you, it was barely a spank, by the way, and I felt so sick afterwards. I felt like I was gonna throw up. I
Mhm.
Mhm.
couldn't do it. I was like, I was one smack on the bottom, and he had to go to his room. And I just, in Islam, a prophet never hit, never demeaned, never
Mhm.
spoke harshly. So why would you possibly think that that's something that is good? I don't understand. I mean, I would not like to be hit or demeaned, and I'm an adult that's supposed to be able to handle my emotions. So why would you think that a child would be able to handle something like that? So just that's just for me. If a child is acting up, there's so many ways. That's time for you as an adult to not act up. It's a time for you
Mhm.
to
To set the
listen to
example.
them, wait for them to calm down. Set the example. Exactly. Yeah. Did I answer the second question?
S
It doesn't matter because we got a lot of
I
good
think parts of it.
information.
I think parts of it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think what you said speaks to
Alhamdulillah.
parenting different kids differently, because I know I've got one where I would be so stress relieved if I just spanked him, but that wouldn't solve anything. The underlying problem would
Mm.
still be there, and it's a communication problem that I'm working on with him. And
Oh,
I think we lost her, but she's going to come right back.
yeah, we
She'll
lost her.
come back.
that's
The issue
brilliant.
with
I'm gonna use that.
Oh,
Can you
see,
hear me now?
Uzma, we
Nope.
lost you. We couldn't hear what you just said. Yep. Could you repeat that? Because you're back now and we couldn't hear what you
Oh.
said.
Oh, I was saying I learned before I got married from a friend. And again, it goes back to thinking how funny it is, because she would threaten her kids with, if you do this, then I'm going to give you away. And so I use it. And, lo and behold, my kid doesn't think it's funny at all. And I actually sometimes mean it. So I really appreciate you, putting it
Oh.
out there and saying, no, you can't say stuff like that, especially because you
No,
are a mom of successful kids, mashallah. And I want that to be my manual. So I will stop saying it. So kudos to you. May Allah give you a reward because you just rehabilitated me,
I mean,
which is not an
I
easy
think
feat
you
because
knew
I
that
actually
already,
showed up at a
Uzma.
party
No
with a
credit
wooden
to me.
spoon.
That's
Well,
so
no, I,
funny.
I went to a party, another Hyderabadi party, and my kids were misbehaving during prayer. And so I pulled out a wooden spoon because I used to carry it in the diaper bag. Okay, that's how little my kids were. I had a
Oh
diaper
my
bag
God,
that I carried a wooden
Uzma!
spoon in. And I would threaten them and be like, "Do you want chum chum? Do you want chum chum?" And they'd be like, "No
Oh,
chum chum." And this auntie who was hosting the party was like, "You should be ashamed of yourself. You carry that with you." I was out of state. And I brought my chum chum with me. And she's
oh
like,
my
"No, you don't threaten
God.
children. You're the grown up." Yeah, so she rehabilitated me from that. Now you're rehabilitating me from my mantra of I'm going to give you away. So we won't do that anymore. Thank you so much, awesome moms. Now, for moms who have these aspirational, amazing kids who are tuned in right now, they have remarkable children, and they know they have remarkable children, but they don't know what to do with them, or how to cultivate that properly. What advice do you have for them?
Um,